Tempe, Arizona. A warm spring evening in 2001. In a quiet neighborhood near the intersection of rural and Guadalupe, life seemed peaceful. Families were winding down their day, children playing outside, the desert sun dipping below the horizon. But inside one modest home, everything was about to change. 54-year-old Patrick Servino opened his front door, and within seconds, he was dead, shot in cold blood. The only witness? A blind woman, his ex-mother-in-law, whom Patrick had been caring for out of loyalty and compassion. 22 years later, no arrests have ever been made, no suspects officially charged, and no answers for the family left behind. This is the story of a man whose life ended at his own doorstep, a case that still leaves detectives, neighbors, and loved ones asking, who killed Patrick Servino, and why? To understand this case, you first have to understand the man at the center of it. Patrick Servino was 54 years old. He wasn't wealthy, wasn't powerful, and wasn't famous. He lived an ordinary life, the kind that rarely makes headlines. But those who knew Patrick described him as kind-hearted, dependable, and perhaps a little too trusting. At the time of his death, Patrick was divorced. But unlike most breakups, his ties to his former family didn't end there. His ex-mother-in-law was blind and vulnerable. Rather than walk away, Patrick continued to look after her. He drove her to appointments, cooked meals, and ensured she had someone to rely on. In many ways, he was her lifeline. It was an unusual arrangement, one that spoke volumes about Patrick's character. He wasn't perfect, but he had a conscience. He couldn't leave someone defenseless. But on March 14th, 2001, that sense of responsibility would put Patrick in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was just after dusk. The streets around rural and Guadalupe were quiet. Patrick's ex-mother-in-law sat inside, her world forever in darkness. Patrick moved about the house, preparing for a quiet evening. Then a knock at the door. Patrick walked over. He opened it, and in an instant, everything changed. A single gunshot echoed across the neighborhood. Patrick collapsed, struck down in his own doorway. His ex-mother-in-law could not see the shooter. She could not describe their face, their clothes, their car. All she could do was listen to the deafening crack of the gun and the silence that followed. By the time neighbors rushed to call 911, the killer was gone. The crime was as sudden as it was brutal. A man had been executed at his own front door, and the only person who heard it happen could offer no description of who pulled the trigger. Tempe police arrived quickly. They taped off the scene, interviewed neighbors, and searched for evidence. But what they found was frustratingly little. No weapon was recovered. No clear eyewitnesses. No surveillance cameras. Remember, this was 2001, long before Ring doorbells and smartphones. Detectives were left with a body, a bullet, and a blind witness. The investigation turned to motive. Who would want Patrick dead? Theory 1, robbery. Could someone have targeted his home? Possibly, but nothing inside appeared to be stolen. The house was left intact, valuables untouched. Theory 2, personal vendetta. Patrick was divorced. Could there have been lingering resentment? Some friction in the family? Investigators explored this, but no evidence pointed directly to his ex-wife or relatives. Theory 3, mistaken identity. Could the killer have gone to the wrong house? Maybe, but if so, why choose Patrick's door? And then there was a possibility that Patrick knew his killer. After all, the person knocked. They weren't breaking in. Patrick opened the door willingly. Was it someone he trusted, or at least in fear? Each theory had potential, but none had proof. And as the weeks turned into months, the trail grew colder. Then came the whispers. Neighbors spoke of a suspicious vehicle parked near Patrick's home around the time of the shooting. Some claimed Patrick had been followed in the weeks prior, and darker rumors emerged. That Patrick may have stumbled into something he shouldn't have. A dispute, a debt, or a secret someone wanted silenced. Could Patrick's kindness, his willingness to stay connected to his ex-wife's family, have drawn him into danger he didn't see coming? The truth is, no one knows. No suspects were ever officially named. No arrests were ever made. And slowly, Patrick's murder slipped from headlines into silence. For Patrick's blind ex-mother-in-law, the murder was a tragedy beyond words. She had already lived in darkness. Now she carried the sound of that gunshot with her until the day she died. Patrick's friends and remaining family were left to mourn without answers, without closure. The case file sits in Tempe police storage, aging with every passing year. And yet, the questions remain as sharp as ever. Who knocked on Patrick's door that night? Why did they kill him? And how have they evaded justice for more than 2 decades? True crime often leaves us unsettled, but unsolved crimes leave us haunted. Somewhere out there, Patrick Servino's killer is still alive. Maybe they built a new life. Maybe they live with guilt. Or maybe they've forgotten his name entirely. But for those who love Patrick, the memory remains, and the question remains. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that never find an ending. This was the unsolved murder of Patrick Servino, and until justice is served, his case will remain open in the murder book. Patrick Servino's murder didn't just affect his family. It rattled the entire neighborhood around rural and Guadalupe. This wasn't a high-crime area. It was suburban, quiet, safe. The kind of place where people left their porch lights on and trusted their neighbors. After Patrick's killing, that trust vanished. Doors were locked earlier. Curtains were drawn tighter. And a chilling thought lingered in the air. If it could happen to Patrick, it could happen to anyone. Parents warned their children not to answer the door after dark. Neighbors whispered about whether the killer still lived among them. And the silence from law enforcement, the lack of progress, the absence of arrests, only deepened the unease. A single gunshot had fractured a community, and with no suspect in custody, the wound never healed. Detectives pursued every angle they could think of. They looked at Patrick's phone records. They combed through financial transactions. They questioned family members, neighbors, and acquaintances. But time and time again, they hit walls. No one reported Patrick being involved in drugs or gangs. He wasn't wealthy, so robbery for profit made little sense. He wasn't the type to rack up dangerous enemies. And yet, someone had pulled the trigger. For investigators, the most frustrating part wasn't just a lack of evidence. It was the lack of motive. Crimes like this usually leave a trail, jealousy, greed, revenge. But Patrick's killing seemed almost senseless. Unless, of course, the killer knew something detectives didn't. Something hidden in Patrick's past or in his present. Over the years, several theories emerged. Theory 1, a random act of violence. Could this have been a stranger, someone passing through, looking for trouble? It's possible. Tempe, like many college towns, had its share of drifters. A robbery gone wrong? A random shooting? Perhaps. But then, why Patrick's house? Why knock? Theory 2, a family connection. Patrick's devotion to his blind ex-mother-in-law was unusual. Admirable, yes, but unusual. Could there have been bitterness from someone else in the family? Could someone have believed Patrick was overstepping or interfering? Police never confirmed this angle. But behind closed doors, some whispered about family tensions that might never have reached the surface. Theory 3, a personal grudge. Patrick was kind, but kindness doesn't make you immune to enemies. Could he have crossed paths with someone, at work, in the neighborhood, or even years prior, who held on to anger? Someone who waited and then struck when the opportunity came? Theory 4, mistaken identity. Could Patrick have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time? It wouldn't be the first time an innocent man opened the door to violence meant for someone else. Each theory had merit. Each one tugged at a thread, but none unraveled the truth. And so the mystery deepened. As years turned into decades, Patrick's case began to fade from memory. Detectives retired. Leads dried up. The neighborhood changed. New families moved in, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded in their street. But for those who remembered Patrick, the pain never faded. Every anniversary of his death was a reminder of justice denied. Every mention of his name was followed by the same unanswered question. Who knocked on his door that night? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, is the killer still living free in Tempe today? Unsolved cases like Patrick's are never truly closed. In police storage, his case file still exists. The evidence, limited as it is, still waits. And with modern technology, there's always a possibility that something once invisible could one day be revealed. DNA testing has advanced. Ballistic analysis is more precise. Databases are larger than ever. All it takes is one match, one overlooked clue, one person with the courage to finally speak. Maybe the killer slipped up over the years. Maybe they bragged. Maybe they confided in someone. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is out there right now listening to this story. If so, the time to come forward is now. Patrick Servino's story is not just about a man who died. It's about a community shaken, a family scarred, and a mystery that still waits in the shadows. For more than 2 decades, his killer has remained free. But cases like this remind us of one simple truth. Time does not erase crime. And until justice is found, this story will remain unfinished. This was the unsolved murder of Patrick Servino. And until answers emerge, it will remain one of the darkest chapters in Tempe's history, and one of the coldest cases in the murder book. If you have information on this case, contact Tempe Police Department. Subscribe for more true crime investigations.